Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So this year we've spent a lot of time talking about the 2024 election, but we haven't spent a lot of time talking about the elections that are going to be taking place this year because we have three southern governorships that are going to be up for grabs. Republicans already hold on to Mississippi. They probably are going to flip the state of Louisiana. And on top of that, that leaves the only other state that's really competitive or winnable for the Republicans where they can take it away from the Democrats is the state of Kentucky. Kentucky is a state that voted for Donald Trump by nearly 30 points both election cycles. It used to be a state that was competitive at the presidential level. Bill Clinton won the state in the 90s, and it was relatively close in 2000 and 2004 compared to how close it is now. But Republicans have really transformed the state, and I think Donald Trump played a major role in cementing its status as safe red, including down ballot, where a lot of these other races, like these Senate races or House races, they're voting more Republican than they have in years past as well. But still, the one office that's the toughest nut to crack has been that governor's mansion, partially because Matt Bevin was an awful governor. And we know that. He was an awful governor, and nobody really liked him. And as a result, he lost to a Democrat who didn't really pretend to be that much of a moderate. He passes himself off as a moderate, but still, he's fairly liberal and extremely liberal for the state of Kentucky. And he beat Matt Bevin barely in the 2019 election. He did not get 50% of the vote. And partially, the only reason why he won was not just because Bevin was unpopular and the Libertarian candidate took 2% of the vote away, thanks again, Libertarians, for ruining everything, but because Andy Beshear is the son of Steve Beshear, who was a very, very popular governor in the state in the late 2000s, even early 2010s, and Andy Beshear was the son of Steve Beshear, and even though he was a lot more liberal than his father, he kind of utilized his last name to win. And as a result, he hasn't really done a whole lot as governor because he can't do a whole lot as governor except veto bills, many of which will get overridden by the state legislature, to the point where he's not really that unpopular. He's maintained a higher approval rating than he should, despite him being a very liberal governor who says and does a lot of liberal things and attempts to do the most with his office that he can to push back on the rest of the Republican elected statewide official slate and the state legislature, which that is Republican as well. And as a result, he is governor. He is the favorite, according to many people, to win re-election, but it doesn't mean that he's guaranteed victory because he's not. And especially these statewide races, they are malleable. There's a reason why Democrats can be competitive in the first place in a state like Kentucky. Also, there's a reason why Republicans have the governorships in places like Vermont and Virginia and New Hampshire, which are all states that voted for Biden by either 7, 10, or in the case of Vermont, like 30, 40 points or whatever. But still, it kind of proves that governor's races are not exactly the same as national races. The same thing goes to the whole, oh, well, Ron DeSantis won Florida by a lot as an incumbent governor, therefore he must be super electable nationwide. That doesn't necessarily always translate well or add up. And of course, Andy Beshear is likely going to try to position himself for a 2028 presidential run if he does win re-election on the Democrat side, because he can act like, oh, I'm the moderate that talks to Kentuckians, when in reality, he just got elected because of his last name, had the worst opponent possible that the Republicans could have put up, barely beats him, and then kind of just is this figurehead who people don't really hate as governor because he really can't do anything. So he's going to try to utilize that to his advantage politically in the future. Now, the Republicans, on the other hand, have nominated Attorney General Dan Cameron. This was the candidate that Donald Trump endorsed for this election way back in, I believe, 2022. Trump endorsed Daniel Cameron. Daniel Cameron won the Attorney General's race in 2019 in the same election by 15 points that Matt Bevin lost to Andy Beshear by, so he outperformed Bevin by about 16 17 points in terms of the, net differential between the Republicans and Democrats. So Cameron was a lot stronger on the same ticket. If he was the nominee against Beshear in the first place, yeah, he probably goes out there and wins. And he was arguably held back by Bevin. If Bevin was not at the top of the ticket, he probably would have won by a lot more than just 15 points. And we know that. But even so, looking into it, it doesn't mean he's guaranteed victory over Beshear this time, because Beshear does, surprisingly, like I said, have a high approval rating. However, it does mean that he can beat Beshear, because you have to look at the raw math here. 2019, there were 1.4 million votes in this election or so. Andy Beshear got 700,000 votes in the state of Kentucky. If you want to look at the 2020 election in the state of Kentucky, Joe Biden got more votes than Andy Beshear did, despite Andy Beshear winning Kentucky and Biden losing it by like 26 points. So looking into this and really seeing what's going on here, it's true. It does come down to the math. 772,000, that's a lot more than 709,000. But Bevin was so awful that a lot of these conservatives and Trump-aligned Republicans, or even just independent voters, or even like legacy Democrats who voted for Trump, a lot of them did not vote in this election. And those that did vote did not vote overwhelmingly enough for Matt Bevin to give Matt Bevin a re-election victory. And that's true. But Daniel Cameron, could he get those voters out? Well, he won the primary, and he won it by a lot more than a lot of people expected. And you could attribute a lot of that to Donald Trump's endorsement there. He really ran up the score, and Ron DeSantis's preferred candidate, Kelly Craft, only got 17% of the vote, when a lot of people were saying that she could have an upset potentially brew, and she ended up falling behind Ryan Quarles and getting in third place there. So looking at the grand scheme of things, Cameron is somebody that has overperformed this year already. It's possible he could do it again, but again, you look at the total votes there, that's 144,000. He's going to have to add a lot of voters to his repertoire. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of these voters that voted for other candidates. Cameron is somebody that's not like despised by a certain wing of the party. He should unite the party. He is objectively a good candidate on the surface, but you have to look at the campaign that he's going to really run, because obviously you have somebody that, objectively speaking, has support of the Republican Party, has the endorsement of Donald Trump, who is uniquely popular in a state like Kentucky. But can he exactly energize the voters? Because it's not only the boost of the endorsement, because you have to do it yourself. I mean, that's part of it. It's not nothing. We know that, but it's not everything. And the Beshear name is still popular, even though we know that Andy Beshear is overrated. We know he's not a moderate. We know he has no business being governor of Kentucky. And we know that if his last name was not Beshear, he likely would not be governor of the state of Kentucky. So we have to look at the polling, where we have a lot of right-leaning polls in the aggregate here. And you have Public Opinion Strategies. They released a poll that showed Andy Beshear up by 10 points with a 63% approval rating in June of 2023, June 22 to June 29th. However, a month later, their poll came out with a likely voter sample, which tends to be a little bit more accurate, I guess, because it's a likely voter screen, and that shows Cameron within the margin of error. It shows Beshear below 50%, but even then, internal pollster, this is a pollster, Public Opinion Strategies, that's also Ron DeSantis aligned. Potentially, you could say, well, maybe they're underestimating Cameron because they think that having a Trump-endorsed candidate lose in the general like helps DeSantis or something. I don't know. I don't think this will have much of an impact. But again, at the end of the day, they're a Republican pollster who probably does want Republicans to win this race. So maybe they're just trying to show the race narrowing and it's a pro-Cameron poll. I don't really know. But either way, the polls, we don't really have a lot of them. The polls we do have are relatively, on average, close. But still, Cameron's not where he really needs to be in order for me to say, oh, he's going to go out there and win. But I mean, we've seen late surges happen before. We've seen Glenn Youngkin come from behind and win down the stretch in the state of Virginia a few years ago. It's possible. We know it's possible for Republicans to win this race and Daniel Cameron. Daniel Cameron, I'm looking at his website right here. However, he doesn't have an issues page, really. So it's like he talks about himself a lot, which is fine. I'm not saying you can't have an About Me page, but there's no real issues page. What are you bringing to the table? What are you campaigning on? Because when Youngkin ran in Virginia, he had a comprehensive platform. He said, I'm going to get rid of critical race theory. I'm going to get rid of this grocery tax. We're going to do X. We're going to do Y. We're going to do Z. And then Terry McAuliffe shot himself in the foot enough for Youngkin to overtake him and win and become surprisingly popular in the state of Virginia. Now, when it comes to Daniel Cameron, what exactly is he running on? He has an accomplishments page, which kind of does talk about what he's done and kind of does show a little bit of the fact that he takes positions and stands on issues, which is fine, and that's good, but what is he exactly going to do as governor? We haven't really seen a lot of that, and how has he exactly attacked Beshear for being too liberal? I haven't seen enough of it, and he's going to have to step up his game if he wants to win this race, which, like I said, it's doable, it's possible, but have I seen enough from him? Yeah, not so much so far. So like I said, he has a shot at victory. Even if you want to say it's an outside shot at victory, he does. The math is there in Kentucky. If you turn out enough voters for the Republican side, turn out enough Trump supporters, you are going to win this state. You have the math all in your favor. This is true. Even people that are okay with Beshear, they also are not going to oppose Cameron necessarily. There are a lot of swayable voters over to Cameron's side. He has to sway them. He has a chance. But it depends how well his campaign is run down the stretch, because this is a race very similar to Kansas in 2022, because you look at what happened in Kansas in 2018. Governor wins that's too liberal for the state, that happens to be facing a candidate a lot of people view to be weak and insufficient, and as a result, they're going to be governor for 4 years. We saw that with Bevin losing in the first place to Beshear. Of course, Beshear had the advantage of the name recognition thing, unlike Laura Kelly. And you look at somebody like Beshear, he surprisingly has an approval rating higher than he should be for the state that he's in. In every poll that we see, just like Laura Kelly. Laura Kelly ran against an attorney general, statewide elected official that didn't really run the best campaign. Nobody really knew what they stood for. There was not a lot of polling for the race. And at the end of the day, Laura Kelly won re-election narrowly, but she still won. And I think we're seeing a similar pattern here. So I think Daniel Cameron can win. I support him. He just needs to step it up down the stretch. There's still time. We're in July. Of course, politics, a week is like a year in politics. 2 weeks is a lifetime. And 3 weeks is like an eternity. We know how these things work. A lot can change in a little bit of time. And Daniel Cameron needs to take advantage of that and regroup a little bit now. So by the time October rolls around, he's going to be neck and neck. By the time November rolls around, he can position himself as a favorite. Also, what are they doing for turnout? And on top of that, Donald Trump needs to go down to Kentucky and rally for Daniel Cameron. We hear a lot about a lot of these Republicans in places like Wisconsin or the Georgia runoff we saw there with Herschel Walker. The party said, Trump, you need to get lost. You're going to cause us to lose. And then they get rid of Trump, and they lose by even more than I think a lot of people anticipated they would lose by. And Kentucky's a state where Donald Trump is very popular. It's funny that you're going to have people blame Donald Trump if Cameron loses because they're trying to score political points against him. They don't understand how electoral politics really work. Donald Trump is somebody that a lot of Kentuckians love. His approval rating in Kentucky is probably far north of, 60% or so, to the point where he needs to go to Kentucky. He needs to rally voters. He needs to energize turnout. He needs to tell people to vote as early as possible so the party's not trying to find them at the 11th hour, trying to get them to turn out or overcrowd polling places on Election Day. So that's really the take for this. We need Cameron to win. We would love to pick off 2 governorships this year. Is it possible? Yes. Is it doable? Yes. But something needs to change because as of right now, Cameron's behind by a little bit, but he still can win. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.